Nocturnes, some of the first ones. These are charcoal still lifes from the 1980s.
I think I remember those.
That's one of my mother's early pieces. The old lady. Look at that hat.
Fantastic.
Unbelievable.
That expression.
That's a sketch from my mural in Valle that you heard about. And this one here is near Châtillon. It's called Le Miroir de Seine. So that's my homage to Créé. That's last light. Very end of the day. Just after that it turned dark. It's when the white trunks emerge.
Yeah.
Come on in, Lisa.
Oh, beautiful here. So these are the ones, your most recent ones you were talking about.
Yeah, these three.
And this is part of a single series with the...
A series of nocturnes.
Yeah? And where were these painted from?
Two of them were in the park here in Fontainebleau, and the other one is in New York.
Okay. And then, and also in black and white. These are the same settings then?
This is Cold Spring. These two are Fontainebleau. And all of that is either Châtillon or this is down near Nîmes. So it's this one. And this one here was in Paxos, Greece.
Oh, here's the one from the bridge, eh? I love this.
That's right there. That's actually
But you said
the
it was-
Jura. It's not Châtillon, it's
Oh.
not, but it is the Jura near Châtillon.
Okay. Well, I noticed mostly landscapes here. Do you prefer to paint landscapes?
I've been working on landscape almost exclusively for the last 10 to 12 years.
And why is that? Why the focus on landscape?
I think more than any other single thing is some kind of feeling of release in space that doing a portrait or a still life doesn't have. Somehow you get fixed on a form in those other genres. And in the landscape, I feel very free not only to physically imagine moving through the space, almost flying through the space, but also I think I feel more free to improvise. It's easier to mess up a tree than it is a face. In figure work, there was always some element for me of proving myself or showing someone what I could do, because I'm good at it. Whereas in the landscape, that's just not an issue.
And the other thing I'm seeing is just some various media. So it's some charcoal and some oil, and I don't know, is there one medium that you prefer, or?
Well, I've been working with a mixture of oil and wax to render the surface more matte. And I've also mixed in matter, usually stone powder, marble powder or pumice or quartz, and really work with texture. So the texture is part of the material too. Other than that, yeah, drawing material, pastel, which is powdery and has a kind of light that any liquid medium could never possess. And charcoal, which is just my earliest and favorite drawing medium. That you can easily erase it, make changes, move it around, so you're never locked into anything.
So to follow up on that idea, I like the yellow. Talk about yellow.
I don't think, like some people, have a real gift for color. They're born colorists. I was always more of a born drawer, and I always had an inferiority complex about my color sensitivity. But so I think that it kind of forced me to work harder and focus more intensely on the whole issue of color. And painting is, above any other single thing, color. I started with a great teacher at Cornell named Gillian Peterson Craig, a great colorist and a great figurative painter, who had an ability to formalize what otherwise are just emotions, but she was able to describe them and help us, her students, to use craft towards a creative end. But at Cornell, there was a lot of work that was going on that made no sense to me at all because it was completely eclectic, and I wanted a much more focused, concentrated education in figurative drawing from the figure. And so I transferred and went to Boston University, where at that time Philip Guston was teaching, although he was in the graduate program. And also there I studied with Reed Kay, who was, along with Ralph Mayer at the time in the 70s, the world authority on materials and techniques. And having always been interested in materials, that was the place to learn. I didn't have my own style from the beginning at all. In fact, one of the things that Guston said to me when he saw my work, he said, "Oh, you're way too good. You're too talented. You're going to have a lot of trouble figuring out what to do. Because you can do anything you want. Why don't you do this?" Guston had a way of lifting you up and tearing you down all at the same time. So it helped you grow. But actually, you mentioned mentors. My earliest mentor, I guess, was my mom. And I was rather intimidated by her talent. And I thought, I'll never be able to equal that. And plus, she was manic depressive and had manic episodes, great flights of fancy and insight. She had experiences. I can show you downstairs one of her paintings. You would think that Hans Holbein, the younger, did it. And this was a big issue for me, and I took a class at Cornell in psychology, and we studied psychotic art, which fascinated me. And after the class, I went up to the professor, and I asked him point blank, do you need to be crazy to paint? No, no, no. Ready?
So tell us about this spot, David. Where are we?
This is the Loeb River Valley, and down below is the subject of the mural.
So you decided to use this spot as a mural. Why was this an especially good spot for the staircase?
Well, the original idea was that the point of view of the observer would not be on the ground at all. And the reason for that was because the architecture of the staircase is so light, the stairs float in the space, so that as you walk up or down the staircase and view the mural, you are moving as if you were flying like an eagle. And at one point I painted an eagle into the mural, and then I realized I didn't need that. It was too anecdotal, and that I, or we, as observers, are the hawk. So I took the hawk out. Yes, I did 3 years of sketches for the mural, which are, I guess you could call them traditional paintings. Most of them on cardboard. And all of that was preparation. It took 11 years, 11 summers, because it was always in the summer. And it was, I forget the exact years, it's signed with the years on it, but approximately 1999 to 2010, something like that. The whole thing was scaffolded, and I did it by myself.
Oh my gosh.
At first I thought I'd hire a crew, but then I realized with the kind of changes I make on these things, just like an easel painting, they would never put up with me.
So tell me what you're representing here, what your idea was.
Create space, in this case flying above the valley, and movement in space, and simultaneously negate space in order to respect the integrity of the wall as a flat plane.
Right, yeah, it's such a gorgeous space. It goes right through the doors.
And the image continues through the floors, and this is the main wall.
let's say you were trying to explain to a novice painter how to go about painting as an object, a tree or anything. What is the mistake or the extra advice you could give to a novice painter?
Well, there's really two approaches, and either can work, and it depends on the temperament of the painter. One I call the whole approach, which is kind of what I'm doing here. I'm taking pretty much simplifying into large shapes and trying in one svelte swoop to establish that the intention is that this will be what it is. You just go for it. And it never really turns out that way, but your intention is to go immediately for the final decisive effect. The other approach, which I call the addition approach, which I'm not doing here, would be to begin to creep towards that effect, rather than trying to hit it premier coup,
I see.
they call it in French,
Yeah.
to creep up on it either by a combination of little marks, like a pointillist mark, and also that the color, rather than starting with the extremes, as I've done here, establishing the extremes, you would stick to the center, and then gradually you'd work up the lights and down the darks. But in either approach, you try to work the whole thing at once. That every mark I make anywhere on the canvas affects all of the other decisions.
Could you explain this painting and what the allegory is?
Sure. A common theme for me is the artist in the studio. I guess it's my story, so it makes it relevant. So it's a fantasy, and so here we have painter and muse. And the animal, the dog, is between worlds. Me being in the real world, and the model, a fantasy.
Yeah.
And the dog is the transition between the two. And in the painting, within the painting, which I love paintings within paintings, is this painting,
Right.
but reversed, because I'm seeing the whole thing in a mirror. The same theme, but now we have the artist with muses. And the model on this side of the painting is in the same pose as in the other one we just looked at. She's turned into one of two twins. So the models are twins. That's based not only on the fact that my mother and her aunt were identical twins and major influences on me from the beginning, but also because my model for the artist, in this case my old friend Peter Devens, the writer and artist, was a twin in the womb, and the other twin didn't survive. So that's kind of part of the narrative of the image. There are two staffs here,
Oh, I see now, yeah.
which theatrically represent the door between the real world and the fantasy world through which we're traveling, and as in the other image, the dog, who's the guardian of the gate. Peter is drawing a spiral,
Oh, yeah, I see it now.
a symbol of eternity. And the landscape is a complete fantasy. The window and the arch itself are based on the studio here. But the landscape in the back is based more than any other single thing on one of my great heroes, the 19th century landscape painter Ralph Albert Blakelock, who was the American Van Gogh. Another crazy genius who spent most of his life in a mental asylum, like my mother, so it's tied back to the twins. And in this case, the head, or the heads, are based on my wife, Anne. This portrait, but also allegory, because she is the artist in the studio, this little theatrical scene, and the little house is symbolic of home, and in fact at the time she was pregnant with Isabel, my first daughter, and so the home is the womb in front of her. And I remember in working on the painting, the thing that clinched it was the addition of the beret.
And why is that?
There was something, the whole thing built to this triangle, this pyramid, which I wanted to be monumental and a symbol of absolute infinite permanence. But it just sort of came to a kind of a pinhead. And it didn't have lasting strength. And then out of desperation, I put this beret in, and
yeah. And tell me about this.
Well, here's a much more recent version of the artist and muses. Now it's me, or it doesn't have to be me, but I posed for myself. But in this case, it's about Ulysses and the sirens, and I call it Artist and Sirens. He's, instead of having his ears plugged, he has a blindfold. This is a model from my imagination, reclining nude, which I've painted several of, but not exactly this pose. And this is the Blue Moon muse Christina, who had a dream, and the dream is represented in the mirror behind her. She dreamt that we all went up to the quarry, which is what that depicts, at night, and that we lit the quarry blue. And that's the image in what is a mirror, actually, but it also is a window. And so I've tried in this image, as in some of the others, to include all three major genres, namely figure painting, still life, and landscape.
What's this up in the corner?
That's a reference to Van Eyck. It's a globe, and if you get up close to it or look at it carefully, it's a reflection of the entire studio.
Why do you paint?
Well, the only truthful answer to that is I don't know. But you're reminding me when I asked that question to my little daughter Isabel, who was maybe 6 years old at the time. And she came up with a very succinct and truthful answer, which was, if I didn't, I would cry.